For the longest time, I thought these were old fashioned, superstitious even. Things my grandparents or parents did because they didn't have access to modern medicine or modern wellness. Things I was too educated, too busy, too westernized to bother with. And then slowly, one by one, I started trying them. Because I was curious, because something wasn't working the way I wanted it to. Because I ran out of Western solutions and thought, fine, let's try what's been in my culture for thousands of years. Every single one of them worked, and every single one of them, it turns out, has science behind it that our ancestors never needed to cite because they just knew. These are 12 Indian wellness habits I wish I had started a decade earlier. And the part that stings a little, they were always right there in my own kitchen, in my own home. I just wasn't paying attention. Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Shreyashi, and I'm a software engineer by profession, and I like to make videos on skincare, travel, lifestyle, wellness, productivity, and a lot of other things. And today I'll be sharing with you all the Indian wellness habits that I wished I had started earlier. A few things before we get into the list. I am not a doctor and I'm not making medical claims. Everything I share is my own experience, what I noticed in my own body, alongside what the research broadly supports. Always speak to your doctor before making changes, especially if you have specific health conditions. Also, none of these are complicated, none of them are expensive, most of them require things you already have at home. That's the point. This kind of wellness was always accessible. We just stopped believing it was valid. So, let's get started. Number 1, soaking nuts overnight. I thought soaking nuts was just an old habit with no real reasoning. They're nuts. Why does it matter if they've soaked overnight? It matters enormously. Raw nuts contain phytic acid, a compound that binds to minerals like iron, zinc, and magnesium and blocks your body from absorbing them fully. Soaking neutralizes the phytic acid. You're not eating the same nut, you're eating a significantly more bioavailable version of it. Our parents, our grandparents soaked everything. Not because they were superstitious, but because they understood digestion and absorption in a way that took Western nutritional science decades to document. And same soaking goes for lentils and pulses as well, which the West is now adapting to. Number 2, oil pulling. This one I resisted the longest. Swishing oil for 10 to 20 minutes felt like the most inconvenient, slightly unpleasant wellness habit I had ever heard of. I genuinely laughed at it and now do it every 4 to 5 times a week. My gum health, my teeth, my overall oral health, noticeably different. And the logic is simple. Oil binds to bacteria and toxins in the mouth, and you spit them out along with the oil. Research has shown oil pulling with sesame or coconut oil significantly reduces harmful oral bacteria, reduces plaque, and improves gum health. Some studies show effects comparable to chlorhexidine mouthwash, without the side effects of long-term antiseptic use on the oral microbiome. The mouth is a significant entry point for systemic health. What lives in your oral microbiome affects your gut, your inflammation levels, your immunity. Oral health is not just about your teeth, it's about your whole body. And this practice is of thousands of years old in India. It was never about vanity, it was about understanding that mouth is the gateway and what you do there affects your everything downstream. And similarly, you should always do tongue scraping, which has been a part of our culture since years. I have been doing that since my childhood because I've seen my parents do it. But if you're still not doing it, high time you start your tongue scraping because it removes all the toxins that have built up as a result of your digestion overnight, and also keeps your mouth clean, your breath is fresher. Number 3, haldi in warm milk. Haldi doodh or haldi milk was what I drank as a child when I was sick and complained the entire time. The moment I was old enough to refuse it, I did it. I felt medicinal and old-fashioned, and then I realized the Western world rebranded our haldi doodh, put it in a brown paper cup, sold it back to us at a premium, and called it golden latte. Turmeric contains curcumin, one of the most studied in anti-inflammatory compounds in nutritional science. Chronic inflammation is linked to joint pain, cardiovascular disease, and cognitive decline. Curcumin addresses it at cellular level. The critical detail where Indian cooking wisdom is extraordinarily precise is black pepper. The piperine in black pepper increases curcumin absorption by up to 2000%. Our grandmothers always added a pinch of black pepper to haldi doodh. They didn't know the mechanism in scientific terms, they just knew it worked better that way. They sold us golden lattes for hundreds of rupees. It was haldi doodh with a western font. We had it all along. Number 4, Abhyanga. Oil massage before a bath was something that happened in childhood. Someone applying oil to my scalp before a hair wash. I thought that was the full extent of it. A full body self massage with warm oil felt excessive and messy. Abhyanga is something completely different. Massaging warm oil into the skin, sesame coconut, stimulates lymphatic drainage, improves circulation, deeply nourishes the skin barrier, and most powerfully activates the parasympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system is your rest and digest state. Even 5 to 10 minutes before a shower creates a measurable shift in how the rest of the day feels. Tel malish before a bath was a standard in every Indian household for generations. We replaced it with shower gel and forgot why we did it in the first place. Number 5, eating with the sun. Early dinner, no food after dark. I thought early dinner was something that was for older retired people, something tied to village life and no electricity, not something relevant to modern urban life with social dinners and late work days. This habit has ancient roots that have nothing to do with electricity and everything to do with human biology. Our digestion is governed by circadian rhythm. Digestive enzyme production, stomach acid secretion, gut motility, all are significantly more active during daylight hours and wind down after dark. Eating late means your body is being asked to digest food at the exact time it is physiologically preparing for repair and rest. The two processes compete. Digestion loses, food sits longer, sleep quality drops, and the overnight repair work that determines how recovered you feel simply doesn't happen as effectively. My Whoop data made this undeniable. Late dinner nights produced consistently lower deep sleep and recovery scores. Early dinner nights were consistently the opposite. The data removed every excuse I had left. In our Indian households, we knew growing up we had to eat dinner by 7:30. It wasn't a wellness choice, it was just how it was done. Turns out it was exactly right. Number 6, Trifla eye wash or Trifla Neta Prakshalana. Now this is very, very personal because it has solved one of the biggest problems that I'd been facing for over years. I think since I was in school. According to doctors, eye doctors, my glands in my eye are more susceptible to storing the dirt and the dust particles. And in India, we do have a lot of pollution. We have a lot of dust particles and so much of construction work going around, so many things happening. My eyes are tend to store them. And when it stores these dust particles, it leads to infection in my eyes and it causes sty. And not 1, 2, 3 styes at certain times in the same eye. And then I kept on checking with doctors. I've been to so many eye doctors, the best eye doctors, and all they tell me is keep your eye clean. And how? All they tell me is wash it every time, like 2 to 3 times a day. I started doing that, but that was not helping at all. I was still getting those styes. And once I had to get eye surgeries in both the eyes because the sty turned into callusion and it had to be surgically removed. And then I discovered eye wash cups and the Trifla eye wash. Now, Trifla eye wash is made by taking 1 liter of water, adding like around half teaspoon of your Trifla, boiling it, and then straining, cooling it down and straining and storing it, and then using it in these eye cups and washing your eyes. And honestly, it has been the best remedy for my styes. I have not gotten a sty if I've been washing consistently with Trifla eye wash, and if I have stopped washing it, I do get it, but if I again use it as soon as I get it, it just vanishes in the same day. Otherwise, it would take me 8 days, 10 days for that sty to get completely removed, and then I had to keep warm compresses on it. Honestly, this Trifla eye wash has completely changed this game and has resolved one of the biggest problems that I had been facing in my eyes. And not just that, if you don't have this eye problem, just having dry eyes or anything, just try out the Trifla eye wash. It's very, very beneficial and it's also very good for your eyesight. You can also, while you use these eye cups, you can also do muscular eye exercises which will strengthen your eye muscles. So it's an amazing, amazing thing to do for your eyes because we sit in front of screens, the strain and everything. The Trifla eye wash takes it all away. Number 7, washing, massaging feet before bed. This one I started almost by accident. I read something about nerve endings in the feet and sleep quality and thought I'd try it for a week. And that was years ago. I haven't skipped it since. The feet have more nerve endings per square centimeter than almost any other part of the body. And the nervous system's response to foot massage is very real and very well documented. Massaging the soles of the feet activates the vagus nerves, the primary pathway of the parasympathetic nervous system. This directly lowers the heart rate, reduces cortisol, and signals to the body that it is safe to rest. For people who struggle to wind down at night, foot massage is one of the most effective and underused tools available. You will definitely sleep like a baby if you once start massaging your foot before sleep. Pair dhona before bed was a standard in traditional Indian households, a ritual of cleanliness and of completion. I always washed my feet before going to bed. Now, ending the day by caring for the part of you that carried you through it. Number 8, dry brushing. Dry brushing before a shower stimulates lymphatic flow, the body's waste removal system. Unlike the circulatory system, the lymphatic system has no pump. It relies on movement and external stimulation to drain. Dry brushing is one of the most effective ways to support lymphatic drainage, reduce puffiness, and improve skin texture over time. Before commercial skincare existed, Indian women had some of the most sophisticated skin rituals in the world. We traded them for products, and some of those products are good. None of them are better than what we gave up. Number 9, navel oiling. This is the habit I get most skeptical reactions about, even from Indian people. Putting oil in your belly button sounds like a folklore at first mention. But here's the anatomical reality. Navel is the first connection we have to nourishment as human beings, and during fetal development, the umbilical cord delivered everything, and the navel remains connected to a rich network of blood vessels and nerves, even after the cord is cut. The skin around the navel is thin and the underlying vasculature is dense, making it a potentially efficient transdermal delivery point. Different oils serve different purposes. You can choose whatever you like. I apply castor oil few drops every night. What I noticed is good skin quality, menstrual comfort, and a sense of groundedness. Nabhi Chikitsa is one of the oldest practices in traditional Indian medicine. The West is catching up to it. I've seen girls on Instagram, YouTube making reels of applying castor oil, putting a patch, and then going to sleep. So yeah, it's high time we own up our own traditions. Number 10, eating warm food and drinking warm liquids. This is where I feel the most genuine cultural whiplash. Everything in the Western wellness world pushed cold pressed juices, iced smoothies, cold brews was the opposite of what Indians have always known. In every Indian household I knew, water was served at room temperature, food was eaten hot, the idea of cold water with meals was considered almost harmful. I dismissed all of this as preference with no real basis. Digestive enzyme function optimally at body temperature, which is 37 degrees Celsius. Cold foods and liquids cause blood vessels in the digestive tract to constrict, slowing the enzymatic activity and reducing digestion efficiency. Warm liquids support gut motility, keep digestive system relaxed. Since switching to warm water or room temperature water as my default, my digestion has been noticeably more settled. And not just Indian culture, drinking warm liquids and having warm food is also a very important pillar of the traditional Chinese medicine. Number 11, pranayam or breathwork. I thought pranayam was the religious part of yoga that you skip to get to the physical practice faster. Sitting and breathing in a specific pattern seemed like something for people with a very different kind of morning than mine. I was completely wrong. Pranayama is the most direct tool I've found for regulating my nervous system, and I say that as someone who also tracks HRV, uses a Whoop, and has tried most things. I actually started with pranayama for good skin, but I stayed with it for a clearer mind and a more calmer nervous system. Nothing else moves the needle on how I feel in my nervous system as quickly or as reliably as conscious breathwork. I do a mix of practices like Kapal Bhati, and then which energizes and clears, Anulom Vilom, which balances and centers, Brahmari, it calms the mind. Then there's box breathing, that is wonderful stress reset, and the 4-7-8 breathing, which is for calmness. Pranayam has been practiced in India for thousands of years. West discovered breathwork about 15 minutes ago and charged a premium for it. We had it all along for free with instructions passed down through generations. Number 12, Jalniti. I want to start with something that genuinely amused me when I discovered it. The West sells the Neti pot as a wellness innovation. These are sleek ceramic versions on wellness websites for thousands of rupees. Lifestyle photo shoots, influencers discovering it like it's new. Indians have been doing Jal Niti for thousands of years. We call it Jal Niti, they call it Neti. Same thing, different marketing budget. Jal Niti involves pouring warm saline water through one nostril and letting it outflow through the other, clearing the nasal passage completely. I do this regularly, more frequently during monsoons when the sinus congestion or periods of high pollution, or when I feel early signs of congestion or cold coming on. Jal Niti physically flushes out all the nasal passages, removing accumulated pollutants, allergens, and bacteria that cannot be cleared on their own. Studies show Jal Niti reduces symptoms of allergic rhinitis, upper respiratory infections, and just cleared the passages. The West discovered the neti pot and made it a wellness product. We discovered the Jalniti thousands of years ago and made it a daily practice. The only difference is the branding. 12 habits, all of them free or nearly free. All of them available in your own kitchen or home. All of them practiced for thousands of years by people who understood the body in ways we're only now beginning to document in clinical language. The thing that strikes me most is not that these habits work, it's that I needed Western science to validate them before I believed they would. I needed a study, a paper, a wellness brand to put it in a beautiful package before I trusted what my own culture had been telling me entire life. I don't want to do that anymore. And I hope this video is the beginning of you not doing that either. Which of these do you already do? Drop it in the comments. I want to know. And if there's one your family has done for generations that I haven't mentioned, please share it. This kind of knowledge deserves to be passed on, not forgotten. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to be reminded that we had it right all along. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, bye bye.